מזמור לדוד, אדוני אלוהי לא יחסר, בנוטש ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת בשם ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
As Cantor Shippen began our service by chanting Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, today as we gather to remember with great love and, please join me in Psalm 23 in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach, Yishem Adonai Mevarach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. We gather here today to express our deep abiding love, honor, and respect, and to say goodbye to Chana Rivka, to Anne, who this week was taken from us. Our hearts are filled with sorrow over her passing, but also with great love for her and the joy and comfort that come from memories of times shared, of the gifts of her care and affection, of the impact of her presence on the life of all those who knew her and loved her. We come together today to draw strength from memory as we honor her. As we do so, I'd like first to call upon two of Anne's grandchildren, first Andrea and then Aaron.
My brother, cousins, and I may disagree on the spelling of Bubby's name, and for the record, it's B-U-B-B-Y, but we are in full agreement that we hit the jackpot when it comes to Bubby's. She was truly the grand matriarch of our beloved mishpacha, and very proud of the size and strength of our family. When I think of Bubby, the smells, sights, sounds, tastes, and the emotions of my childhood come flooding back almost so rapidly that I can't even keep up with them in my mind. Now, in this moment, when I think of Bubby, I reflect on the life lessons that were woven into each of those memories. Watching Bubby float almost seamlessly from one task to another taught me the importance of staying grounded in reality, accepting what is, and not letting the small stuff rattle your state of mind. Bubby's days were busy, but she always took time to play with her grandchildren, teaching us and giggling with us along the way. And Bubby taught me that the perfect way to end a busy day is perhaps with a little chocolate and a bowl of fruit with a folded paper towel for any pits or seeds. And many evenings I find myself smiling as I tear off my own paper towel and fold it, and plop on my couch with a bowl of cherries or grapes. Of course, some of my fondest memories of Bubby revolve around our Jewish traditions and holidays, instilling in me reverence for and faith in Judaism. Growing up as a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors and immigrants meant a childhood filled with stories, sparking a lifelong love of storytelling. Some stories were horrific, some bittersweet, and some were joyful as I learned about life in the shtetls, the camps, and in liberation. I wanted to know the narrative behind every photo in her albums. I soaked up stories about my mom and her siblings and her cousins and their communal upbringing, teaching me that it really takes a village to raise a family and every one of us plays a part. Bubby and Papa, for that matter, taught me that mishpacha is everything. To be grateful for our freedoms, never waste an opportunity to vote. Bubby taught me to be grounded, grateful, resilient, to share our life stories so that others may learn. And she taught me to make a delicious bowl of matzo ball soup. So much of who I am today is a direct result of being Anne Cyncynatus' granddaughter, and I'm so very proud when I see those qualities in my own daughters, L'Ador V'Ador, and thank you for the honor of being your grandmother, or granddaughter, Bubby.
Hello. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Aaron Cyncynatus. I'm Anne's favorite grandchild. When I look back and think of my Bubby, it's not just one or two big moments that stand out, but it's thousands of little memories. Friday night suppers, the best matzo ball soup I've ever had, teaching me how to play poker while eating some fresh fruit, while my papa secretly slid me chocolate on the side. I remember visiting her in Florida every spring, and she would make me fresh squeezed orange juice and matzo brie. She was the person who introduced me to lox on a bagel with cream cheese, and my personal favorite, her homemade apple cake. I'm sure everyone here has many memories just like mine. They're great memories and something we will always have to cherish. It isn't often in our lives that we come across someone so special that that person stays with you forever. My Bubby was that kind of person. My Bubby was not only one of the most loving and caring people I know, but she was also one of the toughest and most courageous people too. She and her family endured things that no one ever should, and it's because of her and the sacrifices that they made that I will always do everything in my power to make sure that nothing like that would ever happen again. My Bubby taught me and my cousins so many things. She taught us how to love. She taught us about respect. She taught some of us how to cook. She taught us how to live our lives to the fullest and never take anything for granted. Money can be lost, property can be damaged, but what we inherited from her can never be damaged or destroyed, and it can never be lost. It is in all of us, and it is what keeps her from becoming just a wonderful memory. It allows her to always live on and be with us. The love that my Bubby had for all of us was love without condition. She may not have always approved of the things we did, or agreed with some of the things for the decisions we made, but she didn't lecture and she never judged. She just kept loving, and she made sure that we knew that. The legacy that she created will live on in all of us, and the values that she taught us will never be forgotten. They'll be passed on to my kids and generations to come. There are no words to describe what she meant to me and everyone around her, and we will always love you, Bubby.
Andrea and Aaron, thank you for sharing with us. You spoke really beautifully, and your words touch us very deeply. The rabbis of the Talmud say that words which come from the heart penetrate the heart, and your words penetrate our heart today. You painted such a beautiful picture of your bubby, one that is filled with a lot of love and joy, her pride in you, and the pride you found in her, however she spelled bubby. Anne, Hannah Rivka, was a loving, devoted wife to her husband, Paul of blessed memory. A loving mother to you, Linda and David, Penny and Jeffrey, Jerry and Debbie. A loving, proud grandmother to you, Jeffrey and Andrea and Carissa, Alex and Jessica and Lauren and Ryan, and Tali, and Aaron, and a loving great-grandmother who found such joy in Micah and Noah, in Peyton and Haley Ann, and in Oliver. She was a loving sister to you, Art and Rose, and also a loving sister to Francis and Stanley of blessed memory, to Esther and Herman of blessed memory, to Paul's siblings and their spouses. She was a loving daughter to Mordechai and Liba. And we who are here today, you, her family, you loved her in life, and now we're left to revere her memory in death. We pray that that memory always be sweet and bring you comfort and inspiration. I know that it does. Last night when I met with the family, we talked together for several hours reminiscing about Anne's life and her relationship with each of you, the family. And the family handed me a very beautiful book. I know many of you have seen this book. It was a book that was created for Anne. The process of creating the book began with the intent of giving it to her for her 80th birthday. But it took 10 years to compile that book. It was presented to her for her 90th. It has her and Paul's entire life story, and with that, the story of siblings and children, grandchildren of the whole family. Life in Poland before the war, the dark years of the Holocaust, a new life in America, and the creation of this beautiful family filled with so much love and joy. And they said to me, everything you need to know is right there in that book. I'm not going to read you the book today. We'd be here a long time. But it's really beautiful and deeply moving. And it's a story that all of us should know because it's inspiring and has many lessons in it. Anne was born in 1925 in Poland. Family lived in Kłobuck, which is on the border of Germany. Along with you, Art, and her other sisters and her parents. It was a traditional Jewish home, an Orthodox home. Her father was a kosher butcher. The family was very close-knit and especially enjoyed Shabbat and holidays together, singing Shabbat and Yiddish songs. Anne was very bright. She studied her faith and also went to a secular school. And she was always at the top of her class. In fact, her principal admired her so much that she made sure that and got a scholarship to gymnasium. Art, Anne always had a special place in her heart for you. The two of you enjoyed a beautiful relationship your whole lives. She was 4 years old when your mother was expecting you. Of course, in those days, nobody knew ahead of time if it was a boy or a girl. But Anne told her mother, "We need a boy." And she often reminded you of that over the years. And just as Anne was so loving towards you, you and your sisters were towards her. You shared a beautiful story that once in Kolbutsk, during school years, Anne was in a school play and she played Joseph. When those that were playing, the brothers, opened a door in the floor and threw her down, you know the scene when Joseph is thrown into the pit, Art, you and your sister screamed and cried. It was too real. You loved her and you were watching over her and worried for her. Unfortunately, that scene foreshadowed what was to come. Very difficult, dark years for all of you, the entire family. Before those years, before the war, Anne had already met Paul. Pasachia, as he was known at the time, began courting her, despite the fact that her parents discouraged him. He was a painter then, and I think you said that he was painting the family house or doing some work for the house. And Anne's mother said, "You seem like a very nice young man. How come you don't have a girl?" And Paul said, "Well, you have 3 daughters. Give me one of them." But Anne's parents were determined that she should focus on her education, and so they didn't really want Paul hanging around. That didn't stop them. Anne would go out for walks in the streets with her sister, with Esther, and there in the streets meet up with Paul so they could be together. And then Paul would give Esther chocolate so that she wouldn't tell her parents. Aaron, I think you were the one who commented last night that that must be when the chocolate started in the family. They had a good life in Kolbutsk. A beautiful family, bound together by deep love for each other, filled with tradition, faith, optimism, and joy. And are many of the values that defined your life and Anne's and your sisters. Those values came from that home, passed down to you from your parents. But that came to an end when Kolbutsk was invaded the second day of the war in 1939. And the Germans crossed over the border and immediately put prohibitions in place, including prohibiting work and school. Paul was not allowed under Nazi law to continue his work as a shochet, but he insisted on continuing despite his wife's concern for his welfare, and he was ultimately arrested and taken off to prison. Mordechai, her father, I'm sorry, did I say Paul? I meant Mordechai. Her father was a shochet, right, and he worked despite the danger. Ultimately, he was arrested and taken off to prison. Later that year, the Jews of Kolbutsk were rounded up, first into a local ghetto. Paul, when he returned, did some work for the Nazis, and because he was useful, was allowed to stay there. But part of the family was sent off to a second ghetto, and ultimately to the camps. I'm not going to go into all the details of the war and the suffering that the family endured. Those were dark days, filled with a great deal of pain and loss. Most of the family was murdered by the Nazis. But Anne, Chana Rivka, Pesachia Paul, and Art, Esther, and Francis, along with a few other relatives, were reunited in Vidor and found their way ultimately first to New York City and then to Cleveland, where Anne had family. I don't want to dwell on the war, not because it wasn't important, it was, and it's a story that needs to be told, but because Anne's life was not defined only by the war, was not defined only by the Holocaust and the Nazis' attempt to exterminate us, because she rose above that, as did Art and your other sisters. They came to this country, and despite everything they had been through, they were filled with faith in God and faith in humanity, with optimism, a sense of joy, and this deep love for everyone in their lives. And out of those ashes, they built this extraordinary legacy, this beautiful family. And that's the greatest victory of all over the Nazis. These generations, filled with so much love and so much joy, carrying on everything that Anne held sacred. Anne was an amazing mother. She did everything for you and nurtured each of you so lovingly with an unconditional love. She always regretted that she missed out on an education because of the Shoah, and she felt it was very important. So she made sure that you all got an education. She always talked about how education was so important because it was the one thing no one can ever take away from you. And Jerry, you went to college planning to be a professional baseball player. And she supported you in that because she loved you so much. She went to your games. She would cheer for you in her thick accent. Jerry, hit one on the roof. And when she cheered for you, that voice stood out from the whole crowd. And then in your senior year, you told her that you wanted to go to law school, and she fell off the chair. She was so proud of you. In fact, she was so proud of all of you, her children. And Anne was also the quintessential Bobby, to use her grandchildren's term. So filled with love. Andrew, you shared that as a child you remember living next door and walking over. And you and other grandchildren share that the house in Shaker felt in your childhood like it was larger than life, a huge mansion. This grandiose house with this big circular driveway and humongous double doors. Recently, I think it was Tali. You said that you had driven by the house with Eric. And as you were approaching it, you were telling him about how enormous this house was. And you got there and he said, Tali, it doesn't really seem that big. But in your eyes as children, it was a palace. It was a palace, not just because it seemed so large, but more importantly because it was filled with so much love and joy and so many beautiful memories. It had that doorbell with the xylophone bells that you used to reach up and play. And you have memories of pulling out all the games from the cupboard, like Avalanche, feeding the birds in the yard with Papa, amidst all the flowers that Bubby grew there. Andrew and Jeffrey, as the oldest, you were for a while the only grandchildren, and Bubby doted on you. You would stay at their home for a week or two at a time every summer, and once when I think your house was being worked on, if I remember right, you stayed there even longer. And you loved to stay over at their home. That was a special treat, and your Bubby would always spoil you. All of the grandchildren grew up, as you heard from Andrea, listening to all of Papa and Bubby's stories. The beautiful stories of life in Poland before the war, the dark, difficult stories of the Shoah. The stories of the Shoah were hard to hear as children. They were sad, sometimes maybe even frightening. And yet you shared with me that through those stories you were taught to be joyous, to appreciate the family that you had. That's a statement about the strength, the tenacity, the optimism, the faith, the hope represented by your Bubby and Papa. And you grew up admiring that strength that you saw in them. And, in your words, you all are very grounded because of them. You know what is truly important in life, and you know what it means to stand up for those that you love and to watch over them. Andrew and Jeffrey, you grew up in a small town with not a lot of Jews, so this family gave you your strong Jewish identity and roots, and none more than your grandparents. And you shared a beautiful memory. I hope I can say this. It was really delightful, so I hope it's okay. That when Anne was a small child back in Europe, maybe not such a small child, her mother sent her away to learn a skill. She sent her to another city to learn how to make corsets. She felt that she should be able to have a trade if she ever needed it one day, and she never used that trade until she came to the States when she got a job at a ladies' apparel shop here in Cleveland downtown, where she was a master corset maker. She was very good. She sewed and she knitted and she always did a beautiful job. She hemmed all of your clothes. Jerry, when you were a teenager, you had a pair of jeans that got torn and you asked her to fix them, and she looked at them and said, "These can't be fixed." You said, "You can fix anything." And she did. Sometimes she would come up to her daughters or granddaughters and she would grab the bra strap. She'd say, "This doesn't fit right." She always kind of kept an eye on your clothes. She knew how they should look, how they should fit to be just right. Lauren, Alex, Aaron, and Tali, you were living here in Ohio and spent every Shabbat dinner with your Bubby and Papa. Dinner was in the dining room. On the table in the eat-in kitchen, your Bubby would place the Shabbat candlesticks along with pictures of the entire family, her siblings and parents, all of your ancestors. They were a living presence in your lives. That home was the center for holiday celebrations, for life cycle, brisses, and it was a place that you gathered just to hang out with your grandparents, just to be with them and have fun doing the simple things. Erin, she customized baseball jerseys for you with your name on it. As you mentioned, she taught you rummy, cube, and poker. She also loved to play Mahjong and canasta and watch Jeopardy and all the game shows on the Game Show Network. Her favorite was the Wheel of Fortune, and she was very good at it. Better than you, Linda, you said, and you're an English teacher. And amazingly, she knew all the rules of American football. The house was filled with pictures of family, of every generation. Those no longer with us, right down to the smallest great-grandchildren. And that's what brought her the most joy. Just to be with all of you. And you could see that joy on her face when she would sing to you Hinja Haija, a song about going to the market and getting a shtickle for this one and a shtickle for that one, using all your names, except sometimes Eric, who somehow got left out. And then running a tickle up your arm. She sang that song to her children, her grandchildren, and then to her great-grandchildren. Every time you were in the house, there was always lots of food. She always had something cooked. And even if you had already eaten, you ate again. Holly, she taught you how to make that apple cake, which was her mother's recipe, which you all love. She was an amazing cook and baker. She cooked the old-fashioned way, without recipes or measurements. And Linda, you shared that when you were trying to make something, you would ask your mom how to make it, and she would say, take a little of this and take some of that. You'd say, well, how do I know how much to take? And she would say, you have to feel it. She learned to cook like that from her mother. Family legend says that her mother either did not like to taste food or lost her taste sensation. And so Anne was her taste tester in the kitchen. And she learned to cook by taste and by feel. All those times together were so special for each of you. But most special of all was seeing the unconditional love, seeing the joy that filled your grandparents' life, seeing their faith. They were an example to you. They valued freedom and they loved this country. And they believed in doing for others, and you inherited those values from them. She had such a big heart, and she gave it to everybody. In fact, she gave it even to the therapists and the doctors and the caregivers, and she even brought them food. So many wonderful memories that you all share. Those Sunday gatherings at China Gate for 17 years in the winters. That 50th anniversary celebration you arranged at the Ritz-Carlton. Because when Anne and Paul were married during the war, there was no rabbi, just witnesses. So you arranged for them to have a proper chuppah and renew their vows. Rabbi Scoff officiated. Linda, you made the chuppah from 2 tolesim. The children, the grandchildren held the poles. A klezmer band played. And Art, you and your sisters sang all the songs of your childhood and youth that she loved so much. And Anne loved that day so much that she watched the video of it over and over again. And Linda and Jerry, you both played that for her, even when she was semi-conscious toward the end, because you knew what it meant to her. Memories of 4 summers ago when Bubby was teaching Peyton and Haley Ann to bounce. You still have the video, and you can see the joy on her face. Memories of all those trips to Florida to be with them. And Lauren and Aaron, how you stayed with them in Boca while your parents went on a cruise. And memories of all those special celebrations for Anne's 80th, 85th, 89th birthdays. Anne looked after and cared for all of you. And for Paul. She was the ultimate caretaker. And when Paul had a major stroke and was in the hospital for 5 years, Anne was there every single day caring for him, advocating with the doctors and nurses for him, bringing him food, and bringing food to all the other residents at the same time. They would come around looking for that food. It was so good. And Holly, when your Bubby first met Eric, you were together and his brother was there and she was there and Eric was talking with his brother. They had whatever the discussion was. Eric had turned to his brother and he said, "You're a bum." And Bubby thought he was talking to you. She piped right up and said, "Say that again and I'll kill you." Tali, you said Eric is a pretty big guy and he doesn't frighten easily, but he turned white. She would do anything to protect all of you. Anything to nurture you. Anything to help you succeed in all of your dreams in life. And all she wanted in return was to be with you. To feel the joy of your love. And you all in turn took care of Anne, of your mother, of your Bubby. You surrounded her with love. You were constantly present in her life. And as she began to fail, you gathered around her to watch over her care, to make sure all her needs were met, and to be ever present so she would know that you were with her and that you loved her as she loved you. Part of that care was that you provided caregivers to watch over her. And the family asked me to express gratitude today to 4 caretakers who watched over Anne: Roselane, Chantal, Rosana, and Melinda. They're here today. You came up all the way from Florida to be here because of your love for Anne. And Anne loved you. And the family loves you. And they were all so deeply moved that you made the decision to trek all the way up here to be here today. And they're grateful for your presence in Anne's life and in theirs. You know, this coming Shabbat we're going to read Parshat Vayera. It's the story of Abraham and Sarah, in particular the birth of Isaac and the near sacrifice of Isaac on Mount Moriah. Abraham and Sarah were the founders of our people. Last week, God promised them, I'm going to make you into a great nation. Your numbers will be unable to be counted, like the stars in the sky and the grains of sand on the shores of the sea. And you will be a blessing. And then this week we'll read that God told Abraham, take your son, your only son, bring him to the place that I will show you, and give him up to me. The rabbis of the Talmud say that Abraham and Sarah endured not just that one test, but 10 different tests. Tested again and again and again by God. And yet they never lost faith. And because they never lost faith, and because their lives continue to be guided by their values, because they were committed to creating this great nation that would be the Jewish people and ensuring its continuity, we're all here today. Because of that, Abraham and Sarah became 2 of the most influential people in the whole world, whose ideas are espoused not just by us, but people of many religions, and even people who don't know that their ideas came from our faith. And the Jewish people, despite all the struggles that we have faced, because of that faith, we're here. And in the same way, Anne and Paul, Art and Rose, your sisters, all faced so many trials. More than we could count. The most miraculous thing, the most inspiring thing, is that none of you ever lost faith, and that you never allowed your life to be filled with darkness, but rather you pushed away the darkness with light. You filled your lives with joy, built a family and a legacy of love. And I know that's what you will all remember about Anne, and that she will live on through you. Every time you embrace each other, every time you stand with your people, every time you show faith in God and the goodness of humanity, every time you act with the unconditional love and yet the strength that defined Anne's life, you'll be paying tribute to her and the gift that she was. May her memory always be for a blessing, and we say it together. Amen. We'll rise now for the memorial prayer.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במלול קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע, מזהירים את חלל רבקה במורך בליבם, שלך לעולמה. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתרה בצדק כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים ונשמתם, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
Interment will follow at Zion Cemetery, after which the family will gather at the Gelbart residence, the Four Seasons, 26600 George Zeiger Drive in Beechwood, in the social room. We will gather there immediately following interment through 8:30 this evening, with a service upon returning and at 7 p.m. this evening. And then after this evening, the family will continue to sit Shiva in the Gelbart residence at the Four Seasons, apartment 906. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 1 to 4 p.m. and 7 to 9 p.m. with a service at 7. Friday, 1 to 4 p.m. Contributions are suggested to the American Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., or Kol Israel Foundation.